Let's take a look here. So, quick lesson. This is called zombie pieces. It's kind of an advanced technique. Zombie pieces is not something you'll find if you look in any chess books. It's a coin term that I've made up. But basically, most people understand that if you win a piece in chess, with proper play, you should win the game. And so a lot of chess players at a certain point, they just don't blunder pieces. They don't just put their pieces where you can take them for free. So it's a very advanced technique called zombie pieces, where you let their pieces live. But with correct play, you can essentially make one or more of their pieces completely useless. So that, and this is why I call it a zombie piece, that in a way it's alive, but realistically it's dead. Like that, like in somebody who's watching the board be like, nope, that to the untrained eye that might look alive, but it's a very, very dead thing. And that's what happened in this game between William Winter and awesome world champion Jose Raul Capablanca. Let's take a look. So far this has been fairly standard, not the most exciting opening world in the world. It's known as the Four Knights game, double Spanish. Both sides are playing good chess, but it's also a total mirror position, which, is not a great way to fight for winning chess games, because if you have everything that they have, how are you going to win? You got to have stuff that they don't have. So Winter decides to make the choice to trade bishop for knight and play pawn to d3, which now definitely threatens to win the pawn e5. Notice that winning this pawn right away doesn't really work for a variety of reasons. Black could try to skewer with rook to e8, or even just play bishop takes knight, destroying the defender, and then win back on e4. So it's not really a pawn to be won. But after the defense of the d3 pawn, this is a real threat. And Capablanca decides to play bishop back to d6, which would probably strike a lot of players as a bad move. It moves the same piece twice. It retreats, it gives up pressure on the knight, it turns it into a tall pawn. It just seems like not a great idea, but Capablanca is a very deep player, and experience has shown this is probably good. Another move that might seem incredibly strange here might be the move knight to d7. While this move might seem odd in structures like this, it's not unheard of at all to play moves like f6 to solidify the e-pawn, so you don't have to worry about it anymore, and then reposition the knight somewhere, maybe, I don't know, like either rook e8, knight f8, e6, d4, or knight c3, e6, d4, f4 are pretty good spots. But that's not even what happened. Bishop d6, bishop g5, h6, bishop h4, and now here Capablanca makes a mistake? No, c5. There's a really funny thing in his book. I'm trying to remember, I think it's Capablanca wrote a book, and when a world champion writes a book, you should probably pay attention. It's called The Fundamentals of Chess, and he reviews this game, and he basically says that if a world champion, he was very humble, but he's like, if a world champion like myself makes a move that you think is just like a bad, obvious blunder, bad positional move, whatever, probably take a second look, unless like you can see that they are literally having a heart attack or an aneurysm or something terrible. There's probably something more to the move. The move c5 is twofold. Number one, it gains a bigger bind on the square at d4 so that white can't try to play d4 and fight for the center better and release the game. But it does seem to allow the knight to immediately hop into the square at d5. And that just seems like a very naturally good move, period, the end. I mean, it puts a knight in the center. It can't be taken unless they want to lose a queen. It's following strategy of putting pressure on the pinned piece. And it just seems like a pretty good move. I mean, if we try to break the pin, I just don't think that's going to go very well. You could either just win back the bishop pair and have a better pawn structure and maybe start to target, bishop d3 or queen d3, d2, c3, try to pile up on some of these weaknesses. Definitely not take the free pawn due to knight takes d5 with this common tactic. You take here, I take here, you take here, I save my knight. But yeah, I mean, it seems very, very nice and logical. But Capablanca had a very, very neat idea in store for this, g5, which is going to strike a lot of people as just a bad move. You are taught don't push pawns in front of your castled king. They are the number one thing that keep him safe. You're pushing your pawns in front of your castled king. This seems terrible. And actually, in lots of these kind of situations, if you do make this pin and they play h6, g5, there are many times where you can sacrifice the knight for 2 pawns and have a nice attack on the king if you can bring in your pieces. The queen can come in, maybe the rook can try to rook lift up here, all sorts of stuff. But Capablanca had a plan for this. If knight takes g5, Capablanca was not going to play the robot move take back, but instead knight takes d5 first. And now what does white do? If you take back, I take back, and if you want to keep taking, you lose your bishop. There's no real tactics here. There's no tricks. It's just not good. The other thing that lets Capablanca get away with this is the closed nature of the position. There's no open files on this board, nor does it seem like any open files about to happen. And when a board has no open files, there are no fast ways to attack. There's no fast ways to bum rush black's king. A weakness is only as weak as you can punish it, my friends, and if white cannot just launch a quick attack over there and blow him to smithereens, maybe it's not so weak. So white plays bishop back. White plays knight takes knight first. I think that they didn't want to see bishop g3, take, ruining the pawn structure, and then maybe f6 and just solidify things. And then this bishop is borderline zombie, but still has some freedom. Maybe we can move this knight and play like f3, bishop f2 sometime, something. But knight takes, so knight takes knight, queen takes knight, and then bishop g3. And here, Capablanca plays a very obvious move. I think a lot of players would find it, but I think a lot of players would not understand the full magnitude of it. Bishop g4. And maybe if you're stockfish, you can survive at this point, but positionally, for the vast majority of players, and maybe even some grandmasters will someday see this and chime in, white is basically positionally lost, and yet most players will have no idea why or what I'm talking about. Let's continue. h3, bishop takes knight, queen takes, pawn takes, f6. What's going on in this position? The reality is, if you look very closely, this bishop is garbage. It does not have a good diagonal. It is not putting pressure on anything. I consider pressure when you attack something that has to be defended by stronger pieces and you can pile up on it. This is attacking a pawn that's guarded by a pawn that can't be piled up on. And if you try to be like, okay, how am I going to fix this bishop? Maybe h4. That would fix it if black were to take, but black won't take. And how are you going to fix the bishop? The only way I can even think of is to play some idea like king g2, bishop h2, f4 sacrifice, and f3 so the bishop can drop back. Like a bunch of free moves here. Something like this. And then drop the bishop back to g1 where it can actually try to target something and find maybe an open diagonal against someday. Something. But other than that, this bishop is what I dub a zombie bishop. It's a zombie piece. This piece looks alive. It's technically on the board, but for all purposes, it's just a dead piece. And it's stuck on the king side. So at this point, Capablanca says, okay, that piece is dead. It's stuck on the king side. Logically, if I launch an attack on the queen side, white should fall apart. And that's literally what happens. And again, I encourage you all. I don't have a lot of time. I have a lesson starting with my group in about 7 minutes, probably more like 6 now. So I can't go deep into this. But take a look at this game. Take a look at this position. Don't take my word for it. Don't take anyone's word for it. Do your own investigation. Try to save this bishop without making black play bad moves that help you. And you'll probably find that unless you sacrifice the way I said with the f-pawn, probably not going to happen. And if that's true, then maybe Jesse is right about zombie pieces, and maybe this is an advanced technique where you can beat people by killing one of their pieces, by making it completely ineffective with no good way to solve the issue. The rest is just kind of cakewalk. I mean, the position isn't just going to play itself, but watch how black methodically activates the king in the endgame, brings the rooks to the queen side, starts pushing pawns over here, and again, just plays on the queen side where this bishop is unable to participate. Again, notice that black would not play this move. Again, just if we play this move, suddenly whether we play rook takes and target this weak pawn here, or we play bishop takes, the fact is the bishop can target a pawn that cannot easily be defended by other pawns. So actually this bishop has some usefulness now. It's not a zombie piece anymore. Black's not going to help that. Please also notice that even though white has an open file, the purpose of an open file is either to attack something weak on it or to penetrate. And white can penetrate. h5, h6, h7. However, Capablanca has already made sure that none of these penetration points actually put any pressure on black. If you do this and make a pin, cool. How are you going to put more pressure on f6? If you play bishop rook to h7, you're attacking a pawn that's already defended by a lesser piece. And you're not going to ever attack it with the bishop or a pawn, so it's not going to fall. And you can't mess with the bishop. Slowly but surely, at this point, Capablanca launches an attack, opens the queen side, and everything just falls apart in a matter of moments. Even knows this, hold on. There was one more attempt by white. Please, oh please, take my pawn. I would love you so much if you just took my pawn and I could get rid of my zombie piece. Nuh-uh, nuh-uh. And let me also explain. If you don't think that Capablanca actually saw every possible way that white might try to get rid of these pawns which are killing his bishop and made sure that there was no way to really get rid of them, you're fooling yourself. Capablanca, total genius. At this point, white resigns. Why? Well, on top of being up effectively an entire piece, white now has to try and stop the advancement of this pawn. This bishop can eventually probably come to d4, attacking the rook, which is going to try to stop the pawn from advancing on a1. And white's going to have to sacrifice a rook for this pawn eventually, be down, again, an entire rook, technically, a rook and a bishop, realistically. And again, if you're down even a pawn against a master, you're probably going to lose. But if you're down a rook and a bishop, you know, they would have to be really, really like something. Just don't even. It's not even worth thinking about the possibility because it's not even realistic. You're going to get squashed. Okay, so remember, my friends, are you focused on winning and losing? Stop it. That's stupid. Are you focused on getting your rating up? Stop it. It's stupid. Are you focused on trying to implement strategies in your own games and being graceful with yourself on the process? Fantastic. That is the mindset that'll actually cultivate master level thinking and make you a master. Masters are not made because they got their rating to 1700 because they learned some course on Chessable where they got to trick people occasionally and then they go to tournaments and get stomped on, because that's what happens. Masters are made by observing master strategy and then trying to make that happen in their own games and understanding that it takes time. You're not just going to make a zombie piece immediately. You're not just going to make a great weak pawn to go after immediately. You're going to have to try to do it in real games and be patient with yourself and graceful with yourself. And that's how masters are born. No other way. And anyone else who tries to tell you otherwise is just trying to make a buck on your insecurities and false mythological whatever sales tactics. Again, you know, this is why I'm a big anti-proponent of Chessable. It has convinced people that if you just learn enough openings and pay them enough money, that maybe you'll be a decent chess player, when in reality, all you've done is memorized a bunch of stuff without a real understanding of how chess works on a fundamental level. Stay strong, focus on the right things, try to make strategies happen in your real games, and watch good things happen. All right, gotta go teach for real. Later!